Hey, welcome back to another episode of the She's Making an Impact podcast. I love today's interview. I brought on my friend, Brad Bizjack, to talk all about your mindset, what's holding you back, how to get over perfectionism, procrastination, busyness, all the things that we need as entrepreneurs. Like, I loved our conversation. Me and Brad totally vibe. Our energy is the same. He's super fun. He is, high performance coach, just crushing it, helping thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs just like you get over their stuff so they can achieve higher levels of success because you are made for more. So in today's episode, we talk about a training that he has coming up. I highly suggest you go and register for it. So he's going to be sharing, diving even deeper into everything that is holding you back so you can achieve even greater levels of success. And I'm going to put the link in the show notes, but just so you know, you can go right now, rachelngom.com/Brad. So we're diving in. Take notes. It's so good. Have fun and enjoy the episode. Hey, Brad, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. So excited to be here. How are you doing?
Amazing. How are you?
Doing absolutely fantabulous. Excited to serve, ready to dive in and do some cool stuff.
Fantabulous. That's a new word. I love it. So tell our audience a little bit about you, who you are, what you do.
Yeah, so I am a mindset strategist and coach. I'm an international inspirational speaker, a creator of a little program called Appreciation Academy. And for the last 9 years, I've been pretty obsessed with this idea of how do we help people maximize their potential? How do we make them feel fully alive? How do we elevate their mindset, their career, their relationships to a level beyond anything they ever thought possible? And the reason that's such a near and dear topic to my heart is because for years, that was something that I was personally challenged with, something that I had a really hard time doing, believing in myself, feeling like I was worthy of success, dealing with scarcity mindsets, all of those things. And along the path, I found some tools and some strategies that worked for me and allowed me to impact people all over the world. And that's why we kind of created this, to help people have similar transformations in their own world.
How did you get into this?
That's a great question. That's a great question. So got into this because I was that guy for a long time. I'll kind of give the spark notes of the story where I knew I was meant for so much more than what I was getting out of my life. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, everything I tried wasn't working. I wanted to create financial freedom. I wanted to create this amazing dream life. But if I'm being totally honest, what I really wanted was to be the breaking point of what I defined as mediocrity. I wanted more. And I ran up against this time in my life where it felt like everything I tried wasn't working. It felt like I was doing all the right things, but it wasn't working. And I started to get frustrated and in my head. And I remember hiring a mindset coach at the time. And I was on the very first call with her. And I was telling her how I'm trying so hard to make this happen. I want this to happen so bad. I'm listening to the podcast. I'm reading the books. Why is it that it's happening for everyone else, but it's not happening for me? What am I missing? And she said, Brad, you're so attached to success that you're missing the whole point. You're under the impression that you shouldn't be where you are right now. She said, Brad, business success and money is never going to lead to lasting happiness. It's happiness and appreciation for your life that will lead to success. And so that mindset alone, this idea that appreciation is the master skill to faster success, kind of set me on this pathway to discovering strategies and skills and just becoming obsessed with mindset work. And it was when I started working on myself, the inner game, all the outer stuff started to happen. I think a lot of times people get shiny object syndrome and they focus on the strategy and the, what's the right invite process or marketing strategy or social media technique. And those are important. Right. Like if John the baker spends 20 years perfecting the world's best chocolate cake and gives you the recipe, you can cook the same cake. The strategies matter, but if you bring the wrong mindset to the strategy, you're either not going to apply it or you're going to tell yourself all the reasons why it won't work for you, or you're just going to put half the effort in and it's not going to happen. So I became obsessed with this idea of mindset first. Like if we can get the mindset and the alignment right, then all the strategies start working. And we've applied that to our lives. It's transformed our life and helped us serve people all over the world. And on top of that, we've applied that to our clients' lives, and they've noticed things where they were stuck for years finally clicked and they started moving forward. So that's a little bit how I got obsessed with this whole mindset thing.
Oh, I love it. Okay, let's start with procrastination. Why do we procrastinate?
Oh, such a good question. You ask really good questions. Why do you procrastinate? Really, really simple. Every single human being on earth is driven by two things. Number one, the need to avoid pain. And number two, the need to gain pleasure. And so if you think about what procrastination really is, all procrastination means is that you perceive that taking action would be more painful than doing nothing. That's all it means. You perceive taking action would be more painful than doing nothing. You'll receive less pain by doing nothing. And we switch procrastination when we get to what's called the pain pleasure threshold. Like if you think about back in college where, you'd procrastinate studying for a test and you'd go to the parties or go do whatever you do in college. Right. And then something happens. You hit that one day where you're like, oh crap, I should probably study. And then the pain pleasure threshold switches and it becomes more painful to not study. And so you go and study, you grab your library books, you go to the library, and this isn't my life at all. That's exactly what I did. Go to the library until 2 or 3 in the morning and study because the pain of not studying becomes greater than the pain of studying. And so that's why we procrastinate. And I can kind of share some tips on how to break through that, but I think it's important to understand that we procrastinate because we're trying to avoid pain. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%, 100%. How do you switch that then and make like taking the action step the thing that you're like, I want, like the not taking action is more painful than taking the action. You know what I mean? Like, how do we flip that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Through the power of questions. So what do I mean by that? Like, it's really easy when you're procrastinating, just kind of react to life and just kind of let life go and let life happen. But instead, if you just take a moment and respond instead of react, right? We're all 100% responsible for every single part of our lives. Responsibility doesn't mean that everything's your fault. It means it's your responsibility, the ability to respond. And most people are so unconscious to how they react. They just kind of go through life. But instead, if you stop and you respond to what you're facing by choosing an appropriate response, then life gets a lot easier. So the way that I choose to do that is through the power of question. Whenever procrastination comes up for me, which it still does, what I do is I ask myself a couple of questions about consequence. If you think about the movie A Christmas Carol, right? There's Ebenezer Scrooge, and he's kind of a butthead. But then in one night, he totally changes because 3 neuroassociative conditioning specialists showed up at his house, right? The ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. And what did they do? They linked pain to what happens if he doesn't change. And so we can do the same thing with procrastination. We can say, what will this cost me in 6 months from now if I don't take action? Will it cost me in a year, 2 years? And if we can link up consequence to what happens if we don't change and actually become conscious and aware of, the consequences of not acting, then we realize, wow, I should probably do this. And so there's actually a process that I teach on how to do that. And it's a 5-step process of beating procrastination, but that's kind of the basic entry level look at it. It's link consequence to what happens if you don't intentionally.
Pain and pleasure. You really just like got in my head of why I'm chronically early all the time. It's because of, I played volleyball, like really hardcore. And if we were late, there was one time I was late and they made us do man-on-one where my coach threw the ball all over the gym and I had to chase that ball and get it up. Like I almost died. I swear. Like I'm covered in bruises. I'm like on the court, like, oh my gosh, like it was so hard. And I'm like, I'm never late again. Ever going through that pain of being late that one time. I'm like, oh, yep, you conditioned me. Like I am never late again. Nope. So that's hilarious that you just like made me reflect on, okay, that's why. That's why I do that. Let's talk about perfectionism of someone who's like just waiting until it's perfect to do the thing. And they just keep waiting and waiting and waiting.
Super, super common. And if we need to be honest about what perfection is and the consequences, again, of perfection in order to break through it. I think, and there's a strategy that we teach called anti-perfection, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But the main concept of perfection is that perfection is just fear. It's just fear that you're not enough. That's all perfection is. And my favorite quote of all time is from Tony Robbins. Not my favorite quote of all time. One of my favorite quotes of all time is from Tony Robbins. And it's, perfection is the lowest standard we could ever set for ourselves because it guarantees pain. It's lower than doing nothing, because if you do nothing, you'll receive pain, but you'll act. If you're trying to be perfect, it doesn't matter what you do, it won't be enough. And so when we're living in perfection, it causes pain in one of 3 ways. The first is we're we're sitting there going, how is this going to happen? What's the right strategy? And we're basically studying to have a guarantee. It's kind of like we're so obsessed with the how that we won't take action. It's like reading a book about swimming instead of getting in the pool.
Yeah.
And
That's spot on.
that's what most people do.
Yep.
They just study and study and study and study and study. And it keeps them stuck. It keeps them feeling like, I know I should be creating this life, but there's this hole in their heart that knows they're meant for so much more. But because they're living in perfection, until they have a guarantee of how it's going to work, they won't act. But the only way to know how it's going to work is to act. So they're basically keeping themselves stuck. The second way that it causes pain is that anytime you fail, you'll link up that you are a failure if you're trying to be perfect, because perfection says I'm not allowed to fail. So I have to get everything perfect 100% of the time. So then we start to link up that if anything goes wrong, I'm a failure. Not I've received data that gives me helpful tips on how to move forward. I am a failure, which means that you'll try to tiptoe around and not put full effort into something because you're so afraid of failing. And so it doesn't even matter what you achieve. You'll feel empty inside, like you're drowning, even though you know you're meant for so much more. You're going to have this feeling inside that says, I'm failing, I'm failing, I'm failing. And the third way is that let's say you bypass those things. Let's say that you get in the pool instead of reading the book about swimming. And even though you go under the water a couple of times and you get back up and you don't link up, I'm a failure. Let's say you get past points 1 and 2. When you live in the land of perfection, then what typically happens, and I see this all the time with all the high achievers I work with, is that you'll bounce from peak to peak to peak, wondering where the fulfillment exists. You'll go, is that enough? Is that enough? Like your feeling of worth becomes a moving target. And it never feels enough. You get your whole to-do list done, you're stressed out, you got to make one again the next day. You hit the top rank in your business, then you're stressed out, you got to do it again the next year. And so it causes you to never feel fulfilled. The feelings that you thought a goal would bring you aren't there. So you start to get burnt out and then resentful of the vehicle that was going to be your key to freedom. And so it just causes pain no matter what.
Oh, I was like, you're speaking to me. And back when I was in my network marketing days of like the shiny object, I have to do that. And if I don't get it, I'm a failure. Oh my gosh. Spot on. Can we talk about that failure? You touched on it a little bit. So let's say we actually get over the procrastination. We get over the perfectionism. We take action. We do the thing and it doesn't work. How do we build ourselves back up again and get the courage to try again when we have that in the back of our head of you just failed, be careful, don't do it again, when that voice is in your head?
That's a great question. So I think the first thing is understanding where the fear of failure comes from. And that's the first thing. And the second thing is seeing what failure actually is, which is just data. So let's talk about the first. This thing, and if you guys are listening to this instead of watching this thing is, I'm pointing to my head, is a survival mechanism. It's not meant to make you happy. It's meant to make sure you survive. So at any moment in time, it's looking for what to protect you from. It's looking for what could go wrong. It's looking out for threats. Millions of years ago, you weren't worried about doing an Instagram DM or going live or doing a podcast. You were worried about the saber-toothed tiger that was going to eat your baby. That's what you were worried about. We don't have the same threats now, but we do have the same mind. So it's actually natural for us to be scared. And most people say, I need to be without fear. I need to be fearless. Well, that's basically saying that my biology is incorrect. We are meant to be afraid, and it's not a bad thing. If we're afraid, we don't have the same threats of survival mostly, but we equate the same thing in business or career to fears of death, which isn't fair. So the feelings of fear are very real. We just need to realize that it's not wrong. Most people wait for action until fear goes away. But if you wait for action until fear goes away, you'll be waiting forever because you'll always be afraid. And if you're not afraid, you're not playing big enough.
Yep.
So this is, you'll see people like Rachel, she's so amazing at going bigger, trying new things, serving more people, helping more people, giving back to more people. Doing that level of action is scary sometimes. And so it requires facing your fears. And so what I've adopted is this mindset of, if it's scary, that's a sign I should lean in.
Yes.
Lean into it. Changes the game. That's number one. And number two, that's number one.
Okay.
And then number two, I'm trying to remember what I said. Number two is, when it comes to failure, seeing, and this is a cliche in the personal development space, seeing that failure is actually the greatest gift you've ever received. because without it, you won't know how to succeed. Failure is the yellow brick road to success, because what it gives you is data.
Yeah.
If let's use the example of failure when it comes to rejection. If you get one yes for every 10 people you reach out to in business, I'm making this number up. Well, you have a goal of reaching 10 people and helping 10 people get started with your program. Well, then failure is the only thing that tells you you need to reach out to 100 people to reach those 10.
Yep.
So failure is one of the greatest gifts. It gives you data on how to win, because success comes from good judgment. Good judgment comes from experience, and experience is typically the result of bad judgment.
Yep.
So you need to mess up in order to thrive. It's like a pendulum. If you want to, I'm trying to think about how to illustrate this in audio. If you want to succeed on one side of the pendulum, then you need to fail equally on the other side of the pendulum. If it only swings a little bit to one side, you're going to have the same equivalent of success. But if you swing it big to the failure side, it swings big to the success side. Does that make sense?
Yes. Can you give like an example of what that might look like? The pendulum.
So let's use the example of in marketing, right? If you have the goal of promoting your product or service to serve people in some way, and you are really afraid of failure. So what you might do is you might reach out to 2 or 3 people and say, hey, do you want to try my product or service? Obviously market better than that, right? But do you want to try my product or service, right? You're putting yourself out there, you're inviting them to give a shot at your product or service. So you're willing to risk failure just a little bit with 2 or 3 people. Well, the rewards of that are likely very small.
Right.
The rewards of that are likely very few people are going to say yes, maybe 1, likely 0. And so you're not willing to fail very much. So you're not willing to succeed very much. But let's say that you want to do something like a webinar where you spend dollars on Facebook ads that you didn't otherwise have. And maybe you put it on credit or whatever your choice is to fill your funnel so that you can do a webinar to serve thousands of people. Well, that might cause you to fail way bigger than reaching out to those 3 people. But it gives you amazing data. It shows you, hey, what were my email open rates? What were my opt-in rates? It shows me, when did people leave, stay on the webinar? Did people purchase? It gives you data that allows you to eventually succeed in an amazing way. So if your action is small, that means that your success is going to be small. And if your action is small, it's likely because you're afraid of failure.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Totally. Woo!
Let's go.
Let's go. Okay. Busyness is not a badge of honor. Can you speak into that?
This is one of my favorite topics. Busyness is not a badge of honor. So to anyone listening, I want you to ask yourself a question. Have you ever woken up and felt rushed or behind even when you had nothing to do that day? And this is what most entrepreneurs face on a regular basis. They feel like they're always in this rush. They're always behind. There's something else that needs to happen and they're not in alignment. They're stressed out. And I remember talking with, one of my coaches one day, and I was telling her, I'm like, I'm just feeling so behind. Like I'm not getting ahead. Why is this? And she asked me an interesting question. She said, Brad, what is being busy giving you? And I was like, nothing. It's not giving me anything. Blah, 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 blah. And she's like, well, you might say that, but it's actually giving you a reward. What does it make you feel to be busy? And I was like, wow, it makes me feel important.
Significant.
Yeah. It makes me feel significant. It makes me feel like I matter. I'm busier than everyone else. No one understands my situation. I'm busy or whatever. And that's my way of feeling important. Well, she asked, what's a way to feel important or significant in a more empowering way? And I was like, well, actually doing the things that I said I'd do. That's number one. But this is how most people meet their need for significance. A lot of people will, they'll go through life and they'll try to feel important. Most people do it by having significant problems, and being busy is one of those things.
My problem is bigger than yours, therefore I'm more.
My problem is bigger than yours. But yeah, that's basically it. It's not a badge of honor. It's just a sign that we're trying to feel important.
Yep. What about scarcity mindset of someone who, you can have scarcity about so many things, but let's talk specifically about like scarcity of investing in yourself.
This is a great question. Well, you never get beyond scarcity. You have to start beyond scarcity.
Yes.
That's, I think, is incredibly important. This is one of the lessons that I learned in my life the hard way. We all have a relationship with money. Like if money were a person, like if you were to define that, if you were to see money as another human being, how would you define that relationship? And so for a lot of people, it's clingy. Stay with me, stay with me, stay with me, don't leave. Or if they come, they're like, get out of here. I don't want you anymore. I'm going to go send you somewhere else. And if they do leave, then they're pissed off that that money left. But if you think about a relationship, a quality relationship where there's just a lot of giving and a lot of love, there's a lot of appreciation, there's a lot of patience, there's a lot of love, there's a lot of care, there's a lot of giving. And so what I realized was I needed to change my mindset on money. I needed to see that investing in myself was a beautiful thing, because money is like air. If you hold your breath and take a big breath in, just like money, take a big breath in, you hold it because you're afraid of letting it go, you'll eventually suffocate. But if you let that money go and breathe it back in, and that's the energy you have around money, then all of a sudden, life just gets a heck of a lot easier. So when it comes to investing in yourself, a lot of people will see that as an expense. They'll see it as that's money leaving. Yeah. Instead of that's an opportunity for investment. It's kind of like putting money into your 401k with work. It's a way to see a geometric return long term, which requires a lot of trust. So we need to get to a place where we're not feeling like we need to earn our way to abundance. We need to start in abundance. In abundance, there's a sandwich of emotions that cause you to feel abundant. And there's two emotions that cause it. Number one is unconditional love, which is the mindset of creation. If you are in a state of unconditional love, you want to create something to give to others. This is where you come up with new ideas to be able to serve the world. It's where you come up with ideas like Appreciation Academy or like your programs that allow you to help other people. When you're truly in a place of loving, you create ideas that serve people, that allow more money to come in. You create. It's service to others. And the second emotion is the mindset of appreciation. Appreciation is the mindset of receiving. And so if you have creation and receiving, and you live in that place, unconditional love and a genuine appreciation for your life, that's the sandwich of abundance where life gets a heck of a lot easier. And you're not worried about the money disappearing. A great example of this is, let's say that you're stressed about money, you're worried that it's going to disappear. And you go to a conference where it's a bunch of high vibe people. And in that place, you're lit up, you're passionate, you're excited, and you just feel so grateful. You feel so alive, you feel so connected, so loving. In those moments, you're not worried about money because your state is different. And that's where you come up with ideas to be able to change your financial situation. It's not my money situation changes first and then I feel different. It's I feel different and then my money situation changes.
Stop. Say it again. Say it again. Say it again. That was really important. Say it again, please.
It's not my, wait, what did I say? I got it.
Got it?
I think I got it. It's not my financial situation changes and then I feel different. It's I feel different and that's what makes my financial situation change.
Yep.
Yeah.
Spot on.
One additional point with this that I think can serve a lot is scarcity is kind of a mindset of ore. It's a mindset of being deserving. It's kind of saying, I need to make sure that I earn enough to qualify for that promotion. Corporate America teaches scarcity, right? And this isn't any judgment on corporate. If you love if you love that environment, there's no judgment there. It's just, think about it. There's a certain number of people, and in order to qualify for the next promotion, you need to be deserving of that, right? Which means that it's always a competition. It's always comparison of if I'm enough. And it's, I can do this or that, right? Scarcity is a mindset of or. I can be a great mom or a great business owner. I can be a great dad, or I can be a great spouse, right? It's, you can do all. It's and. Abundance is the mindset of and. And so what we need to realize is there's no like pie of money that you are deserving of your sliver. There are 1,700 new millionaires created every single day.
Woo! I love that.
Pretty nuts, which means that it's abundant, which means it's not a matter of being deserving. It's a matter of creation and appreciation. When you live in that state, it's an ever expanding pie. And that's where life gets a lot easier and you don't feel threatened on a regular basis.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like we could have a 3-hour conversation, but I know you're busy. So let's go to, what's the best book you've read that has helped you have a mindset of abundance like this?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
The best book I've read around financial abundance?
Whatever you think would serve. Yeah, something that's really impacted you.
So 2 books that have really made an impact in my life. The first is Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins.
Yep.
That book has made a huge impact in my life because it talks about the operating system of what goes on behind the scenes in everything that we do. And another great book when it comes to money specifically, if you're a fan of Jen Sincero, she has a book called You Are a Badass at Making Money. I highly recommend that book and not just read it, do the exercises in that book.
Yep.
It'll change the game for how you feel about money. James Wedmore also has a great program called, I think it's like 30 Days to Abundance or something like that. And that's an online program, but it's incredibly helpful with money mindset.
I've listened or read You're a Badass at Making Money at least 5 times. Like, I feel like I need, I don't know, repetition is the mother of skill. So I'm like, all right, I think I need like a tune-up here. I need a tune-up. So let's go through it again. And I literally was just going through James' program this morning. So I'm like, sure, I could always get better at this. So that's so funny. What does it mean to you to make an impact?
Oh, that's such a powerful question. What does it mean to me to make an impact? To me, it's when someone bets on themselves, when someone says, I know I've made an impact when I see someone, and it's not based on, I should rephrase this. When I do my best to give someone the opportunity to take a leap of faith in themselves. Because if I base it on other people saying, hey, this is my light bulb moment, this is me going for it, then I can't live with those emotions unless someone changes. So whenever I give my best efforts of contribution and appreciation and pour my heart into serving others, that's how I know I've made an impact. And that's what I reward myself with, is knowing that I did my best, knowing that I served, knowing that I loved, but seeing the tangible results of that is also reinforcing. And so a great way of seeing that is when you encourage someone to take a leap of faith in themselves. When someone says, you know what, all right, I'm going to find a way to create change. I'm going to find a way to invest in myself, or I'm going to find a way to spend some time reading this book, or this light bulb is going on for me. That's how I typically see the impact that I've made. But really it's taking things that have changed my life and knowing that I have a social responsibility to give other people that opportunity as well.
Yep. So good. Oh, okay. So I know you have a training that's coming up for those of us that want to dive in even more with you. Can you talk to us about that training?
Sure. I would love to. So a lot of people are challenged consistently with this limiting belief that working harder is the key to success, right? I need to sacrifice more in order to succeed. Now, I'm not saying hard work doesn't go into your dreams. Hard work does go into your dreams, but it's the belief that working harder is the key to success that holds people back from what they really want. If you believe that more success requires more sacrifice, and sacrificing what you love, your family, your kids, whatever it is, you're not going to want to succeed. It's a values conflict. Yep. And so what I created was a program that really takes my last 9 years of studying human behavior, working with tens of thousands of people all over the world, and helping them to unlock their true potential on the inside. And it's called How to Accelerate Your Success Without Working More Hours. And it's really how high performers succeed so much faster than all their peers with so much less stress. Yeah. How do you do it with joy in your heart and feeling alive at the same time? And it's a 90-minute masterclass. It's totally free. And we cover 3 main topics. The first is what I call Appreciating the Journey 101. And this is this idea that I think a lot of people have a hard time getting to, but really once you unlock it, it's easy to do. It's this idea of how do I strive for so much more than what I have right now and simultaneously feel appreciative of my existing circumstances. Love where I'm at, genuinely appreciating the journey. So many people post that on Instagram. They're like, it's all about the journey. And then they feel stressed out 2 minutes later. We want to get to that spot where we're striving for more and appreciating the journey. When you're in that mindset, that state of appreciation, that's where you come up with the ideas to be able to change your life. Most people think I should be further along than I am right now, or I should have more money. I should have more spousal support. I should have more time. And they end up shooting all over themselves. And they find themselves stuck and just not in the place they want to be. And so what we need to do is trade those expectations for a genuine feeling of appreciation. And all of a sudden we learn the lesson that's the key to freedom. And I'll teach you how to do that in point number 1. Then we go into what's called anti-perfection. And this training we talked about, or in this podcast, we talked about the consequences of perfection. In that masterclass, what we're going to do is we're going to bring up, how do we actually break through that? How do we actually feel like we've given up perfection, like our efforts are actually enough, like we are actually enough. So we're not trying to prove ourselves. We already know that we're worthy. And when you know that you're worthy, that's attractive. People don't care what you're smoking. They just want to be part of it, right? And it's such a beautiful place to be. And so we're going to teach something called anti-perfection in this masterclass. And finally, something called the magnetic success formula. And what this is how do we attract the time? How do we attract the money? How do we attract the support that we need to be able to create those dreams? Most people think when I have more time, money, support, that's when I can break through. It's I have everything I need within me now to create that. And I'll show you in this class how to unlock that. So it's totally free for you guys to join. It's on Wednesday, October 13th at 10 a.m. Central Time. Highly recommend that you guys show up for it. It is a game changer. It'll change your life forever.
I'm registered. So to our impact makers listening, what I need you to do, so you're on your phone, you're listening to the podcast app, actually go and scroll and get to Safari, whatever browser you're using, and go to rachelandngom.com/Brad, where you'll have the link to register for that class. You can do that literally right this second, rachelandngom.com/Brad, and you'll see me and Brad in that webinar. So I'm super excited for that. It's going to be amazing. Yes, anything else you want to add? I'm really pumped for that.
The biggest thing that I want to add is just helping people see that they're meant for so much more impact, so much more love, so much more care. And even if you've already made such a huge impact, there's another level. I think a lot of people get content in their life and they say, I'm content. Well, my coach, Anthony Trucks, told me, good isn't great, Brad. And
I just saw Anthony speak at Funnel Hacking Live. That's funny.
Awesome.
I think I'm getting him on the podcast too, so that's pretty cool.
It does. He's my coach. He's awesome. He's a fantastic guy, an amazing person. Good isn't great. We all have the ability to expand, to make a bigger impact, to serve more, to love more, to care more. And I just challenge everyone here that's listening to dig into what they know in their heart they're meant to do with their life and go after it with everything that you've got, because all these things we talked about on the episode today, they're going to try to get in your way. And that's how life goes. Don't resist that. When it happens, welcome it. It's part of growth, but you're meant for so much more than what you already have and so much more impact than you've already given, and just go chase it. And when you do that, you can live every single day with a genuine smile on your face. And it's a beautiful place to be.
Oh, so good. Brad, you're amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. I really appreciate you.
You are amazing too, my friend. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope this was of service and adds value to people.